We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Now, this is not some new agey, pseudoscience-y mumbo jumbo. This is actual fact. Your beliefs, associations, your unique perspective, and even the language that you speak and your memories can influence the way that you see the world. This is the lens that each of us wears that colors our experience. I am going to break down the science of how our brains work, the power of your unique perception, and then give you some tangible steps of how you can use this information to train your consciousness and start living a better, happier life. I'm Reverend Amanda Sue, and on my channel, I talk about spirituality and mental health, giving you positive, practical tools to help you live a better life. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, now is a great time to hit that subscribe button. All right, now let's get into today's video. So I have a standard poodle named Theo, and if you're a dog lover like me, you probably have learned a lot about how dogs' brains work. Now, I'm not saying you've actually studied a dog's brain, but I bet you know some key concepts, like that they need an immediate reward whenever they do something good, or how you can use a marker word like yes or awesome and feed treats to them while you're saying it, so they learn to associate that word with them doing something good. A lot of what we know about dog behavior and shaping animal behavior comes from Pavlov. What Pavlov discovered was that when he gave his dogs food, they would automatically start drooling because it's the body's way to start preparing itself for a meal. So what Pavlov did is he started ringing a bell and then giving his dogs food. And over time, what happened was Pavlov could ring that bell without even introducing food whatsoever, and his dogs would start drooling because their minds were anticipating that food was coming because they made that association between the bell ringing and receiving food. Now, I know we like to think as humans that we're so much more evolved than other animals, but really, not so much. So our brains make these same associations and connections. And this is actually the mechanism in our brains that's behind stereotyping. Now, I know stereotyping normally has a negative connotation, but it is a function of our brain that serves a purpose. So let me give you a really basic example. If you walk up to a door, you know what a door is, right? It's this tall rectangle, often wooden, and it has some type of handle in the middle of it. And whenever you come up to a door, you know that you can twist or pull that handle and then either push or pull the door, and it's going to open and lead you into a new space. This is because our brain has made an association that these tall wooden rectangular things with a knob on them are doors, and that if we do a specific task, we'll be able to get an expected result. Now, this is an important function in our brain because if we didn't have this association or this stereotyping mechanism, every time you walked up to a door, you would have to consciously think through, what do I do here? Now, our brain cannot consciously process everything all at the time, so that's why it builds associations to help speed up some of these processes. So some of these associations pretty much every human shares, like the example of a door. But we each also have our own associations that are shaped by our unique life experience. And this is important because we each have an association with things like relationships, work, money, and even concepts like love and forgiveness. And these associations, just like Pavlov's dog, tend to drive our behavior without our conscious awareness. When someone says that they're triggered by a particular topic, what they're saying is they have a strong, pre-existing negative association with that topic. This happens because what fires together, wires together, meaning that our brain is structurally changed by these associations that it forms. Let's say growing up that you always got punished whenever you didn't do well on a test. That means that the not doing well circuits of your brain were firing at the same time as the punishment circuits in your brain. And what fires together, wires together. So over time, your brain becomes structurally changed to start predicting punishment whenever you don't do well. And over time, this can lead to an actual fear response in your body. Like Pavlov's dog, instead of drooling whenever you hear a bell, your heart rate speeds up and your palms get sweaty whenever you don't do well. What this can lead to is that you may have a fear response and stop yourself from doing something if there's even the chance that you won't do well at it. These associations not only make changes in our body and behavior, but they also influence the way that we actually perceive and see things. You remember the dress? Is it blue and black or is it white and gold? This was such an interesting phenomenon because on a mass scale, people were realizing, maybe I don't see color the way that other people see color.
Those shoes are not brown, they're green.
What the hell are you talking about, man?
Those shoes are green.
You guys are idiots, all right? They're as brown as
What
money.
color is Kermit the Frog?
Brown. It's a brown frog.
Winston, you're colorblind, dude.
Now, even if you're not colorblind, there are all sorts of things that can change the way that you perceive color. Things like contextual clues and shadows and lighting, but even things like your memory and the language that you speak. Take this classic example of the chessboard illusion. Now, when you're looking at this, what they're saying is that A and B are the same color, but looking at it, it doesn't appear that they are. But if I take an eyedropper tool, I can actually show you that A and B are the exact same. This is because our memory of what a chessboard looks like with those alternating colors and the shadow that is being inferred from that cylinder are all influencing what we're seeing. And here's the real kicker, is even now that you know and I've shown you that they are the exact same color, it doesn't change the illusion. They still don't look the same. Even the language that you speak can influence how you see color. So for example, in English, we have these broad categories like red, green, yellow, and blue for different colors. And then within each category, there's of course a spectrum. Well, those are our categories in English, but they're not the same in every language. So for example, in Greek, they don't have a category for blue. They have a category for what we would call light blue and dark blue, but not one for blue altogether. And so what this means is that if you take a native Greek speaker and a native English speaker and put them through the same test, the Greek speaker will be able to identify different shades of blue better than the English speaker will, just because of their language and the categories that they place on color. The language we speak changes our perception in other ways too, and this is called the Whorf hypothesis. Let me give you an example. In French, the word for bridge is a masculine word. And so a native French speaker will say that this is because the bridge is strong and sturdy. But in German, the word for bridge is a feminine word. And a native German speaker could look at the exact same bridge and say that it is slender or elegant. Because of this unconscious influence that the language that they speak has on their brains and the way that they perceive the world, they are seeing different things. Language can even impact the way that we conceptualize the passage of time. And this is from a super fascinating podcast episode I listened to that I'm going to link to down in the description, where a researcher found that English speakers tend to see time as passing from left to right, going this way. Whereas more Chinese or Japanese speakers whose language is written down see time passing that way. But then there's a culture that does not have any cardinal directions, no north, south, east, west. And instead they use landmarks from their village, like a mountain or a stream. And the way they conceptualize time is completely different. Now, our perception is also influenced by unconscious assumptions that our brain is making. Take this classic example of the spinning dancer. For some people, it looks like she is turning clockwise or to the right. For others, they say that she is turning counterclockwise or to the left. Now, as you watch the dancer, you might even notice her change directions. This isn't a trick. The image is just repeating over and over and over again. But the reason that you see her as either turning to the right or to the left is because of an assumption your brain is making. It is making an assumption that she is either on stage and you are sitting down below, so she's above you, or you're looking down from a balcony, or that you're eye level with her. Now, if you see her change direction, that means your brain has changed the assumption that it's making, and yet I bet you have no idea how you actually made that happen. They say seeing is believing, but really, believing is seeing. Your beliefs, associations, your unique perspective, and even the language that you speak and your memories can influence the way that you see the world. This is the lens that each of us wears that colors our experience. And our brain actually literally filters out information. So it's not just about how you see things, but even if you see them at all. Right here in the back of our brain is a bunch of nerves that are called the reticular activating system. And its entire job is to filter, to decide what information makes it to our conscious awareness. You see, every moment of every day, there is more stimuli than what our brain can consciously process. So our brain has to make a quick decision on what information is important enough for us to be aware of. So if our brain filters our experience without our conscious choice, imagine how this comes into play with things like a comment that your boyfriend makes about your outfit, or a question that your mom asks you about your work or your job, or feedback that you receive from a boss or from a teacher. I think we've all had those moments in our life when we've said something we didn't mean or had this reaction that surprised even ourselves. Living a spiritual life is about being in tune and aware with the truth of who you are and seeking to express that more. By understanding ourselves more, increasing that level of self-awareness, but then also understanding on a neurological level how our brains work, we are better equipped and better able to make conscious choices of how we want to live our life. And so whether it is transforming a relationship, or getting the job that you really want, or just feeling connected and like there's meaning and purpose in your life, that all starts with your mindset, your frame of reference, your beliefs. We may not always be able to be aware of all of our perceptions and biases and all of these ingrained beliefs that we have, but we can start to recognize some of the more problematic things in our lives and start to shift those. And one of the most direct and powerful ways we can do this is with the stories that we tell ourselves. Lori Gottlieb, New York Times bestselling author and psychologist, says that we are all unreliable narrators of our own lives. And that is because our perception, our perspective, and the way that we make meaning out of the events of our lives shape and influence how we tell the story, what parts we emphasize and what parts we leave out altogether. Even stories about our own lives and things that have actually happened to us are not accurate, truthful retellings. And you already know this because I guarantee there's a story in your life that you tell differently now that you have some distance and some perspective than how you told the story when it was first happening. How we tell these stories shapes the way that we see past, present, and future. This is why eyewitness testimony is famously unreliable. Because hearing on the news certain details about a crime can actually influence what you remember seeing. And you can recall details that didn't actually happen or that you didn't actually see because that new information has colored your memory and your perception of the past. Now, it's not just how we tell the story, but even what stories we choose to tell. Paying attention to what comes out of our mouths when we're in casual conversation is a really great clue into what your brain finds important and is paying attention to. And this is why it's so important to be conscious about the type of media we consume. And now look, I love a good dragon book or stupid TV show as much as the next person, but we have to find a balance between the snacks and something nutritious. Right now on Instagram, for example, they say that negative hooks are blowing up. So creators are starting their videos with things like, I bet you didn't know X, or if you're doing Y, you're doing it wrong, or no one will tell you this, but... And the reason that these negative hooks help the content get more views is because it is hijacking our brain, essentially using FOMO to drive our behavior and keep us watching. So seeing this type of content over and over and over and over again is actually training our brain to start looking for, what am I doing wrong? Where am I missing out? What does everybody else know that I don't know? So we have to find the balance, right? I'm not saying that you have to give up all of social media and all TV shows and movies completely, but balance it a little, right? Mix in some stories that are feel good, where everything works out, to balance out the stories where everybody's fighting and people are assholes. And of course, the most important stories are the ones that we tell ourselves. Most of us have these repetitive stories, like I'm not good enough or people always let me down. And these stories can become self-fulfilling prophecies because your brain starts looking for evidence to prove it to you while ignoring anything contradictory. This is called confirmation bias, and it's just something that our brains do. They latch on to evidence that proves our own beliefs and ignores anything that could challenge us. So if you keep telling yourself and reinforcing this story of, I'm not good enough or I should be further ahead than this, then those types of thoughts are going to continue to pop up in your brain, and it's going to change the way that you're experiencing the world. But the opposite is also true. We can create these repetitive stories of, I have so many great opportunities in front of me. Things are always working out for me. I'm getting better and better every day. These stories can also be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm dealing with this right now as I'm committed to putting these new YouTube videos out every single Sunday. This is still new to me, and the brain hates new stuff. It wants everything to stay the same and safe and predictable. So whenever we do something that's new or out of our comfort zone or a little bit scary, our brain goes into protection mode, and you start hearing these negative fear-based stories even more. Whenever my doubts or those old beliefs or old fears pop back up, I am making a conscious choice to tell myself I am getting better with every video. I am learning something new every day. I am telling the truth as I know it right now, and there is somebody out there that needs to hear this today. All of those things are true. I am learning and I am getting better with each video. It is also true that some days really suck. Some days I watch back the footage that I recorded and I think all of it is dumb and I just need to scrap the whole thing. Literally, my last video, I spent about 30 minutes thinking, I can't salvage any of this, I'm just gonna throw it all away. But then I used my affirmations. I started getting myself into the right mindset, recorded a little bit of extra footage to round it out, and then in the end, I ended up being really happy with that video, and actually a few people it really resonated with, and that was exactly what they needed to hear. So you see, both stories are true. The story that I am learning and getting better is true, and the story that some days suck and I hate everything I record is also true. That is the power of being human, of being a conscious being, is that you get to choose how you see things. You get to choose what you think and what you say, and that makes a difference in how you perceive the world and in the actions that you take. I could have just spiraled down with my fears and my doubts and just hidden away. But instead, I made the conscious choice to use the tools that I've learned to teach my brain to see things differently so I could move forward with what I really wanted to do. Replaying negative stories, whether we do it out loud or just in our own mind, can filter our experience of reality, then lead our brain to prove us right by showing us things that reinforce that idea, and then that turns into a pattern of belief and automatic negative thoughts. I call this a habit of mind because that's all it is a habit your brain has gotten into, and habits can be changed. You can also create a habit of positive, empowering, healing thoughts as well. Now look, I know we all have times in our life where we are living unconsciously, where we're just going through the motions. Or there could just be a certain area of your life where you're unconscious. Maybe it's something that you're just not ready to face yet, or you know it's a problem, but you're not quite ready to commit to changing it. But if you're watching this video, I would guess that there's at least one area in your life where you're thinking, now's the time. I am ready to do this. I am ready to make this shift. So if that's you, I want to invite you to go down into the description and click on the link to download my free worksheet on daily transformation. It will walk you through identifying a problematic habit of mind and then taking simple daily action to start transforming your consciousness. And make sure you keep an eye out for my next video where I'm going to be walking you through exactly how to use this worksheet. If you enjoyed this video and you want to continue following along for more empowering, positive, practical content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And until next time, love you.